U.S. aviation crash investigators are in Monterey County, California tonight, trying to determine the cause of an accident that killed John Denver.
Went up a little bit and absolutely straight down, not spiraling, just absolutely straight down, and then it disappeared behind the rock.
For decades, the tragic death of singer-songwriter John Denver lingered in mystery, despite official reports attributing the cause to a plane crash resulting from fuel mismanagement. Denver, a beloved figure in American folk and country music, met his end on October 12, 1997, when his experimental aircraft plunged into the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California. The world mourned the loss of a man whose music had inspired millions, and whose voice had become synonymous with natural beauty, heartfelt storytelling, and peace. Though the National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB) ruled the crash was due to pilot error involving fuel selection during flight, persistent rumors, inconsistencies, and a lingering sense that something didn't add up kept curiosity alive. Now, years later, a shocking truth has emerged, rewriting what we thought we knew about that fateful day and shining a new, sometimes uncomfortable light on the man, his life, and his final flight. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. It turns out that the mystery surrounding John Denver's death wasn't just an imagined puzzle constructed by fans unwilling to let go. There were indeed elements that didn't align with the official story. For years, enthusiasts, aviation experts, and independent investigators had questioned how an experienced pilot like Denver, one who had flown for decades and logged thousands of hours, could make such a basic error. The official narrative claimed he failed to switch fuel tanks properly during the flight, leading to engine failure. But new evidence suggests the crash may not have been the result of mere oversight. What's been uncovered instead points to something far more calculated, far more deliberate, and infinitely more disturbing. Recently unsealed documents and audio recordings have come to light that were not previously included in the NTSB's public report. These materials were reportedly withheld at the time due to ongoing investigations, privacy considerations, and the high-profile nature of the victim. But a whistleblower, long involved in aviation accident investigations, came forward with information that included technical logs, radar records, and more crucially, pieces of a transcript from a private communication between Denver and an unidentified contact moments before the crash. These transcripts, verified by multiple sources for authenticity, have stirred the aviation community and fans alike. They reveal a chilling conversation suggesting Denver had become aware of a potential malfunction or interference in his aircraft's systems, something he suspected might not be accidental. His voice, calm but concerned, indicated that he had noticed discrepancies in his controls just before takeoff. He reportedly expressed doubts about recent modifications made to the aircraft, a Rutan Long EZ, known for its unconventional design and sensitivity to changes. Denver had previously voiced concerns about the aircraft's ergonomics, particularly the positioning of the fuel selector valve. But this new transcript goes beyond ergonomic frustration. He mentioned that he had noticed tampering signs, specifically that some of the system components didn't feel like they had been reassembled properly following maintenance. There was no panic in his tone, but the implications were heavy. He believed someone had interfered with his plane. What makes this revelation truly shocking is what it suggests: sabotage. A theory once dismissed as outlandish is now under serious scrutiny. The idea that John Denver's crash may not have been an accident, but rather the result of deliberate interference raises far-reaching questions. Who would want to harm him, and why? The more investigators looked into his life in the months leading up to the crash, the more intriguing the context became. Denver was not merely a musician. He was also an environmental activist, a philanthropist, and an outspoken critic of certain governmental and industrial policies. He had testified before Congress, voiced concerns about oil drilling, and advocated for alternative energy solutions. At the time, his activism was ramping up again, and he had been meeting with influential figures about launching a new environmental initiative. This was not a man quietly fading into retirement. He was planning a comeback on multiple fronts. Denver had also made waves in the music industry for speaking out about the commercialization of art and the manipulative practices of certain industry executives. Though widely beloved, he had also made powerful enemies. This context makes the possibility of foul play seem less like a conspiracy theory and more like an uncomfortable reality. Aircraft maintenance logs further bolster the sabotage theory. Independent analysis of the logs, cross-referenced with maintenance crew interviews, shows discrepancies in timing and documentation. One log entry indicates a minor repair that should have taken 45 minutes but was recorded as taking more than 3 hours. There were also inconsistencies in who performed the work. When investigators tried to verify the credentials of one technician listed, they discovered no such individual was registered with the FAA or any subcontracting firm involved in Denver's aircraft upkeep. That person simply didn't exist. The more they pulled at the thread, the more it unraveled into something deeply suspicious. Radar data, too, paints a curious picture. Denver's plane reportedly deviated from a stable course twice before the crash, seemingly due to interference or loss of directional stability. These deviations weren't recorded as part of his flight plan, and according to aviation experts, such irregularities could suggest manipulation of the aircraft's electronic systems or control failure, conditions not typically caused by simply running out of fuel. The psychological profile of Denver around the time also clashes with the official theory. He was happy, engaged, and excited about future projects. He had recently returned from a trip that reinvigorated him. Close friends described him as more focused than he had been in years. He wasn't distracted, despondent, or reckless, traits one might expect from a pilot about to make fatal mistakes. Rather, he was driven, centered, and meticulous. But if someone did sabotage his aircraft, who could have accessed it, and when? Investigators found that security at the airstrip where his long EZ was stored had multiple vulnerabilities. There were no active surveillance systems in place at the time, and the aircraft had been left unattended for a significant window the night before the crash. Several employees came and went during that period, and access logs were incomplete. There was no clear record of who might have interacted with the plane, creating the perfect opportunity for foul play. Another element complicates the narrative further: the possibility that Denver had anticipated this outcome. A close friend recently came forward with a letter Denver had written just weeks before his death. In it, he cryptically referenced forces at work that are bigger than any one man, and expressed frustration over people trying to silence him. The letter wasn't alarmist, but it hinted at growing pressure and a sense of being watched. Denver, always introspective, didn't spell out the threat, but the unease was palpable. While many are quick to dismiss sabotage theories as sensationalism, the depth of detail now surfacing makes it impossible to ignore. The implications are staggering. If John Denver was indeed silenced, it means that a beloved public figure, champion of peace and nature, was brought down not by fate or error, but by intention. That alone reframes his legacy in an entirely new way. It raises the possibility that he became a target precisely because of his message, one that resonated across political, generational, and cultural boundaries. Denver wasn't simply writing songs about sunshine and country roads. He was in many ways challenging systems that profited from environmental exploitation and artistic conformity. This new understanding of his death also forces a reevaluation of the structures meant to protect figures like him. How did such potential evidence of sabotage go uninvestigated or undisclosed for decades? Were key details purposely omitted from public records to avoid panic, scandal, or litigation? And if so, who made that decision? The silence around these questions only deepens the mystery. Fans and investigators alike are now revisiting everything: flight data, personal letters, interviews, even lyrics that, in hindsight, may hold more layers than previously understood. Denver often wrote about a sense of calling, a feeling that he was meant to use his platform for something bigger than music. Some interpret his final months as a culmination of that mission, a sprint toward one last message he was trying to deliver before time ran out, or was taken from him. The newfound revelations do not just recast the circumstances of his crash, they redefine the man himself. John Denver is now seen not only as a gentle voice of the mountains and skies, but also as a quietly defiant figure who may have paid the ultimate price for challenging the status quo. That possibility has sparked a movement among fans and historians calling for a reinvestigation, not out of morbid curiosity, but out of a drive for justice and truth. The idea that Denver's final flight was anything but accidental opens a door that may never fully close. It challenges people to think critically about narratives they've accepted and to question what else has been hidden in the shadows. As more voices join the chorus demanding answers, What was once a closed chapter is being pried open line by line, frame by frame. One of the most unsettling implications of this revelation is how easily truth can be buried. Denver's accident was neatly packaged as pilot error, his reputation left intact, and the public grief managed. But beneath that clean conclusion were whispers, overlooked clues, and now, clear evidence that things were not as they seemed. The shock doesn't come just from the possibility of sabotage, but from how successfully that possibility was dismissed for so long. The full story of John Denver's final moments may never be completely known, but with every piece of new information, the picture grows clearer and darker. What began as a tragic accident now reads like a slow-moving thriller, the layers peeling back one by one. Denver's story, once marked by gentle melodies and pastoral imagery, is now entangled with themes of surveillance, sabotage, and subterfuge. It's a shocking turn in a life that, while outwardly peaceful, may have ended in violence. His legacy, however, is not diminished by this twist, it is magnified. If anything, this revelation cements his status not only as a cultural icon, but as a figure of quiet resistance. The haunting irony of a man who sang of soaring above the earth, losing his life in a fall that may not have been accidental, is not lost on those who followed his career. It adds tragic poetry to an already poignant life story. Denver's fans, many of whom have passed their love of his music down to new generations, are now watching closely as these findings ripple through public consciousness. Whether or not justice can ever be fully served, the truth, however delayed, is a form of vindication. It brings clarity to confusion, weight to memory, and urgency to a legacy too long misunderstood. And so the mystery that once seemed settled has erupted anew, more shocking than anyone expected. The open skies Denver loved so much are no longer just a backdrop to his story. They're a canvas of questions, turbulence, and unresolved echoes from a flight that was never supposed to end that way. The unraveling of John Denver's fatal crash continues to provoke deeper inquiries, especially as new avenues of information emerge and cast fresh shadows on established truths. With the prior revelations pushing public curiosity into overdrive, the continuing investigation into Denver's final hours now ventures beyond the realm of aviation and into a web of intersecting forces, political, corporate, and cultural, that may have had more invested in silencing the man than the world ever suspected. What was once seen as the final chapter in a celebrated artist's life now appears more like an act of erasure orchestrated with precision and intent. Digging deeper into Denver's associations during the final years of his life exposes patterns that raise further suspicion. Though best known for his gentle music and wholesome persona, he had cultivated relationships with a wide network of scientists, environmental leaders, and even politicians, some of whom represented interests directly opposed to those of powerful fossil fuel conglomerates. Denver had become increasingly outspoken about ecological responsibility, not only through his lyrics but through public campaigns, fundraisers, and legislative lobbying. His influence reached far beyond his fans. He had the ear of activists and world leaders. This unique position made him more than a celebrity. It made him a conduit for change. And change, as history has shown, often draws adversaries. One striking detail uncovered recently involved a scheduled meeting that Denver had planned to attend just days after his death. Documents show he was preparing to speak at a closed-door conference in Aspen with several environmental policy experts and government whistleblowers. The agenda, obtained through private records, outlined a strategy to expose illegal dumping of toxic waste into protected wetlands by a major multinational firm. Denver, the only public figure slated to attend, was expected to lend his name, voice, and media clout to the effort. While most participants in that summit moved on with their agendas, the absence of their star speaker fundamentally weakened the initiative. Those who later tried to pursue the plan claimed that media interest all but vanished after Denver's death. The silence, some now argue, was engineered. Tracing back to the company implicated in that environmental scandal reveals curious overlaps with figures known to be operating within private security and intelligence industries. Records show that several of the executives involved hired private investigation firms in the weeks leading up to the conference. Whether or not these firms had anything to do with Denver remains an open question, but their presence in the timeline suggests strategic intelligence gathering, possibly to preempt the damage Denver's advocacy could cause. At the very least, it hints that his movements, statements, and affiliations were being closely monitored. It's not just government and industry entanglements that raise eyebrows. It's also the sheer improbability of the aircraft failure itself. Aviation experts reviewing the circumstances have pointed out that while the Rutan Long EZ was indeed a complex plane to operate, it was structurally sound and known for excellent gliding capabilities, even in emergency situations. The notion that Denver couldn't have managed a safer landing has been contested by pilots familiar with the model. Some have replicated his exact flight plan under controlled conditions with the same fuel scenario, concluding that even with engine failure, a water landing, or even a glide back toward land, should have been feasible. The crash's trajectory and impact suggest a loss of control inconsistent with fuel exhaustion alone. Adding to the anomaly, fragments of the wreckage, long stored in a private NTSB facility, were recently re-examined using modern forensic technologies not available in the late 90s. Metallurgical testing uncovered signs of mechanical stress on a control linkage that appeared inconsistent with normal use. In other words, the damage looked more like the result of sabotage, bending, or tampering than natural failure. The official record hadn't flagged this component during initial analysis, likely because such granular testing wasn't standard procedure at the time. Now, it becomes another crack in the facade of the original conclusion. Personal accounts, too, are resurfacing. An airport employee working on the day Denver's aircraft was rolled out for that final flight recently broke their silence. They claim to have seen a stranger loitering around the aircraft hangar early that morning. According to the witness, the individual wore an unmarked maintenance uniform but wasn't someone they recognized from the usual crew. When asked about their business, the stranger reportedly claimed to be doing a last-minute calibration and quickly disappeared. No such calibration had been authorized or recorded in maintenance logs. This lone account, previously dismissed as hearsay, now gains credibility given the broader context. At the heart of all this remains a haunting reality. If sabotage did occur, it wasn't just to prevent Denver from speaking. It was an attempt to erase a man whose life mission had grown too inconvenient. This introduces a harrowing concept, that certain voices in society, no matter how beloved, can be quietly eliminated if their influence crosses unseen lines. Denver wasn't leading riots or inciting revolution. He was singing songs about forests, rivers, and the importance of stewardship. And yet, even that posed enough of a threat to provoke retaliation, if the evidence is to be believed. The cultural weight of this theory is significant. John Denver represented an ideal of purity and simplicity in art, a figure who, unlike many of his contemporaries, avoided scandal and focused on issues larger than himself. The notion that such a figure could become the target of coordinated action challenges long-standing perceptions of safety and transparency in public life. It suggests that the machinery of suppression can touch even the most unexpected individuals, and that doing good is no shield against the darker forces at play in the world. As attention around these revelations grows, so too does the discomfort they bring. It's not just about re-examining one man's death, it's about confronting the hidden mechanics behind narrative control. Denver's crash may have been the literal fall, but the metaphoric descent belongs to a system that could allow, cover up, or ignore such an act. Investigative journalists digging into the story have faced pressure to drop it, citing sudden loss of access to archived materials, unexpected denials from previously cooperative sources, and in one case, a mysterious fire that destroyed old aviation storage records. While coincidence cannot be ruled out, these obstacles mirror a familiar pattern for those who've explored controversial deaths before. And what of the music industry, an arena where Denver had also made enemies? He'd been vocal about the dangers of artistic commodification and once challenged major record labels for stifling authenticity in favor of profit. He was in talks to launch an independent label with a group of artists similarly disillusioned with corporate music culture. This venture, according to former associates, threatened to disrupt a tightly controlled ecosystem that prioritized monetization over meaning. While there's no direct link tying the industry to his crash, it adds another layer to the motivations one might explore when asking who had something to gain from John Denver's silence. Even legal circles have taken notice. A recent petition to reclassify the crash as an open investigation was filed by a coalition of environmental attorneys and aviation safety advocates. While such reclassifications are rare, the strength of the new evidence may be enough to compel a legal review. If granted, it could lead to the exhumation of key materials, new interviews under oath, and potentially criminal inquiries. This is not just about rewriting history. It's about accountability, no matter how long delayed. The emotional toll of this potential truth is immense. For fans who found comfort in Denver's music, the idea that his life ended not in tragic error but as the result of someone's calculated plan is devastating. It alters how they hear his songs, see his smile, remember his interviews. The innocence he conveyed, genuine and heartfelt, clashes violently with the darkness now associated with his final moments. And yet, many are finding renewed purpose in this discovery. It's sparking discussions about environmental justice, corporate overreach, and the importance of questioning official narratives. This momentum is leading to broader examinations of other seemingly closed cases from the same era. If this could happen to John Denver, who else might have suffered a similar fate under different disguises? It's a question being asked not in paranoia, but in cautious pursuit of transparency. A full-scale reinvestigation, if pursued properly, could set a precedent for truth-seeking beyond this single case. One thing is clear. The silence that followed Denver's death was not just the hush of grief. It may have been the silence of suppression. But silence does not last forever. Echoes remain. And now those echoes are building towards something louder, more insistent. Whether or not legal systems deliver justice, the court of public awareness is already shifting. People are looking harder, asking more questions, refusing easy answers. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us. What are your thoughts on what really happened to John Denver before the crash? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.